Joyce, a warm welcome to you to Nairobi, a warm welcome to the United Nations Environment Program, UN Environment. We're all really, really happy to have you here. And I thought it would be great to sort of get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit, right off the bat, who is Joyce Msuya?
Thank you very much. Asante sana. I'm thrilled to be here. So who is Joyce Msuya? Joyce Msuya is a Tanzanian woman, a wife, a mother of 2 children. I was born and raised in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, but my roots are actually in Kilimanjaro. So if you read the history of my tribe, the Pare people, we are actually the Taitas. We come from the Taitas in Kenya. I went to public school in Tanzania, went to national service, military training, grew up in Tanzania when Tanzania was trying to be a socialist country. And then I got a scholarship that took me to Glasgow, Scotland, after finishing high school in Moshi. It was a boarding school. And the scholarship was really to promote women in sciences. And as I was one of the first 3 women to be selected, I went to Scotland to study biochemistry and immunology. Thereafter, I continued on to Ottawa to study microbiology and immunology. I worked at University of British Columbia, and in '98 I joined the World Bank Group. But I think fundamentally, Joyce Msuya is just a very down-to-earth, caring person. That's what people tell me about myself. I value family, I value people, I value human values. One thing I have learned, having grown up in Tanzania and traveled abroad, we as human beings have more in common than in difference. So I'm always curious about people. I have 2 children, a 19-year-old daughter who is in college and a 14-year-old son. And a wonderful husband and a partner. So that's Joyce Msuya.
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's great to hear you say you, as you say, value human values. We can also assume from your background that you value the sciences. You have academic qualifications in the sciences, studied in the sciences. Tell us a little bit, and you've moved on to sort of public service, working in international development, working at the bank. Tell us a little bit about how being a scientist informs your worldview and what you bring to the positions in which you've served.
That's a very good question, Nathan, and I have to tell you the story about science and Joyce. I grew up in a family of 6 children. I'm the oldest girl in my family, 4 boys and 2 girls, including me. And my parents, from the time that I can remember, they always said, you have to do sciences, because after sciences you can do anything. And what they really meant was that science provides foundations, analytical mind, evidence to help you make decisions, whether you're working in sciences or in elsewhere. And my life symbolizes that. I studied science. Looking back, I think science has given me very strong foundations, very analytical mind. I love data, I love numbers. And whatever I've done since leaving science has actually benefited from the scientific foundation. I'm very curious about environment, largely because of some of the numbers that I saw in countries that I've lived in and the impact on environment and on health. So I think the scientific foundation has allowed me to really explore the world, to explore the planet and the people with a very curious mindset.
Now, obviously the environmental sciences certainly are a key part of what we examine and look at UN Environment. What's your, coming in to the organization, what's your sense of the role and place of the sciences in our work, in our program?
You know, I mean, I have always looked at sciences as a means to an end. If you look at my career, Nathan, I started working at the World Bank Group as a health specialist. Then I moved on to public health, then to economics, then to private sector. What science as a foundation provided to me was actually the analytical tool to slice different and very difficult development-oriented issues. I think if you look at environment more broadly, there are many drivers behind it, whether it's through the ecosystem, the climate change, and others, that are built on very scientific background and foundations. So I'm actually currently reading a lot about the fabulous work that UN Environment is doing, but also asking questions from a scientific background. Where is the data to support? I mean, let's take an example of climate change. I think what you're seeing at the global arena has been informed by scientific foundations. What I have learned about UN Environment from the time I was appointed, that there are some very sharp minds in the institution that are unbundling the sciences behind the environment. So I believe in it, and I'm looking forward to learning more, but also to ask questions, given my scientific background.
Another facet of your background is, of course, politics. You come from a political family, a family that has dedicated much of its time and existence to public service. Clearly, tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow in that milieu and what its implications are for UN Environment. Again, we find ourselves in a time and a space where our mandate demands enhanced political engagement. What do you bring? What have you learned from that kind of background, upbringing, and the career that's brought you here?
So I would answer your question in two ways. I mean, from my experience, I look at politics in 2 or 3 different parts. There is the politics of serving people. I grew up in a household where both my parents actually started off as community organizers and community activists. What that meant to me and my siblings was this strong installation of serving others, that there is a bigger purpose in life than just you. I saw it when I was growing up in Tanzania in public school system under the late President Nyerere. He was a politician, but it was all about serving people. And actually, if you look at the history, he's one of the most human president who transformed the country, but yet actually died quite poorly, relatively speaking. And then the second part of politics, in the context of UN Environment or international organizations that I have been involved in, is how do we give the evidence, how do we empower member states, or in the case of my previous employer, the shareholders, with facts that they can help to tell a better story why they should support institutions such as the UN Environment. So that particular politics is one of the 2-pronged approach that international organizations have to operate in. There's a political environment, but also there's the political support towards fiscal contributions to organizations such as the UN Environment. And I think lastly, I would also say there is politics around global initiatives. If you look at what has happened with the Paris Agreement, the climate change, the license of maneuvering for the environment agenda, most of it was driven by politics. So I see politics as multifaceted. For me, definitely it has shaped and transformed the kind of person that I am. And that's the same spirit I'm giving or trying to give my teenage children, to say there is more to life than just you. You have to serve others.
Great. Let's come to the sort of the nearest part of your autobiography and the last position that you held, serving in the World Bank, serving in the Asia and Pacific region, working senior level advisory role. Is it kind of an abrupt change, or is it a good segue? Is it a springboard What do you bring from your last sort of milieu of work to UN Environment?
So the last role I had at the World Bank Group, I was an advisor to a vice president covering East Asia and Pacific region. For me, it was a continuation of a journey that I started more than 20 years ago when I joined the World Bank Group in 1998. But what specifically was very important for the last position, it was a great opportunity to get a forest view of things, the big macro picture of what is happening in the entire East Asia and Pacific region. And if you know anything about the region, you have the big countries such as China, but also you have one of the smallest countries like Tuvalu, for example. So how do you actually serve the countries and provide support when you have such a diverse size of the countries, but also the economy of the countries? I think second is the diversity of people, of cultures in East Asia and Pacific region, and I'll come back to the UN environment as well. That again gave me the exposure of different people, despite the different challenges. Actually every family, every human being wishes for the same thing. So the commonality of humanity. I think another dimension which is linked to your previous question on politics, I got to work with the board of the World Bank Group very, very closely on controversial and non-controversial initiatives, but also making a contribution, for example, on capital increase or on big initiatives of the World Bank Group in East Asia. So the engagement with what we may call here member states at the World Bank Group is the board. That gave me the exposure. And not to mention being in the kitchen with the senior management and really trying to figure out how can we make a difference as a small institution. Now, all those types of skill set, in my personal view, they are transferable to UN Environment. UN Environment has a very diverse group of staff, very rich culture, very strong foundations on its work. The interaction with member states, I think I've learned one or two things from the World Bank that I could bring in terms of even how you communicate to people, and I see the relevance and the continuum of my journey from the World Bank Group, but serving from UN Environment.
Great. And why particularly UN Environment?
Look, I've had a very wonderful and very diverse career at the World Bank Group, but I was attracted to UN Environment for three main reasons. I think one is this focused mandate on environment. If you look at what I've done in the bank, I've done wonderful things in different sectors. But I was particularly interested in environment because I've lived in China and I have seen how the interface between development, environment, poverty, and health. And I figured after spending 20 years at the World Bank Group, what other noble cause can I contribute to? And environment was one. I think two is the license to operate the political environment in support of the work of the UN Environment. I've mentioned the Paris Agreement and the global recognition of the issues affecting the environment at all levels, from average person to the politicians. Three, I'm always very curious about learning. I learned during my research that UN Environment has about 1,800 staff across the globe. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity would be for me to not only contribute, but also learn from other colleagues. And I think lastly, as a Tanzanian being very close to Kilimanjaro, that was a huge plus as well, and speak some Kiswahili with my friends in Nairobi.
Fantastic. So you've mentioned our staff, and certainly that's one of the great assets of the program, of UN Environment. You haven't even been in the country 24 hours yet, Joyce. This is literally day one for you. So you've got 1 foot in, you've still got 1 foot out. Coming in really is, from the outside of UN Environment. Also really this is from outside the UN system. What are some of your kind of day one senses or perceptions of our strengths, of our challenges, of our opportunities? How do we look from the outside looking in?
You look pretty good. No, but on a serious note, I just arrived around 1 a.m. Today. A bit jet lagged, but quite excited. I usually am very careful about perceptions because I feel perceptions tell one story, and everything in life, whether it's humans, environment, has multiple stories. What I have seen from the time my appointment was out is the warmth of people, staff reaching out to me with ideas, information to share, the briefs that I have received. So I am still a student of UN Environment. I very much look forward to getting to know others. I think from the outside, UN Environment has a good problem, what I would call it a good problem. Very high expectations to deliver, to make a difference on a very pertinent topic, environment. But we are also serving quite diverse group of member states. And I think the opportunity, I tend to look at a glass half full rather than empty, is where can we have an impact? Where can we form coalitions and partners and build on this wonderful group of staff to actually deliver for our member states? So I think the opportunities are enormous. I think we can raise to the challenge and deliver, but also we will have to look internally and say, are we doing the right things in the right place? Are we achieving the right impact as expected by the mandate that we've been given by member states? I'm looking forward to also share some of the experiences that I have gained from elsewhere, but more importantly to listen. I mean, one of the things I have always tried to do and strive to do is to listen and genuinely listen to people. I've always believed, whether it's staff or villagers, they know the solutions more than people sitting at the top. So I'm excited. I don't see challenges, I see opportunities.
Fantastic. The particular role in which you are stepping into, Deputy Head of UN Environment, how do you see it? What do you hope to achieve in that position?
Look, I would not have uprooted my family. I have 2 teenage kids, and I'm sure any parent would know how easy it is or difficult it is to convince, negotiate with your teenagers to move. So I take this job very, very serious, and I'm actually very humbled by the opportunity. I am very committed to the vision that has been laid out for UN Environment, both by Eric and also member states. You can count, the staff can count on my full support and commitment to contributing. The way I see my role is 2 or 3 ways. One is clearing the path for others to do the job well and efficiently. I see my role as removing obstacles for staff, for management, for member states, so we can deliver, because there's a lot to do. But I also see my role as empowering. I believe in empowering people, in holding people accountable, but also mentoring them. And sometimes getting ideas from them so they can mentor us at the higher level in terms of solutions. I think lastly, it's listening to member states, understanding, are we on the right campus based on where you want us to be? How can we work together with you to deliver on the kinds of things you expect us to deliver? How can we make tough choices together? Joyce or Eric or the management team is just one part of the story, but we do need collective actions to actually make a difference. And what that means is every solution can be put on the table, we can debate, but once we've agreed, let's get on with the job and deliver.
Fantastic. Let me end with giving you an opportunity. Day one, what is your day one message to UN Environment staff?
Only one message?
As many as you'd like.
I think a couple of messages. One is I have been humbled and very touched by your warm hospitality and welcome. I've had people speaking to me in Kiswahili, in my native language, delivering flowers. So thank you and asante sana. Very much look forward to learning even more from you. Two, I would say I'm a very approachable person, so please feel free to reach out to me with solutions. Joyce does not have all the solutions, but I'm willing to listen. I'm very open-minded, so drop by in my office, drop me an email, and some of you have. I would welcome that. Three, let's remember that we're here to serve. The mandate is big, the purpose we have is big. Let's not lose sight of what brought us to this noble institution. I mean, most of us, including all staff, frankly, have choices. They could have picked another career, but the fact that you've picked UN Environment, that means you believe in it. So let's move the needle when it comes to the work. I think I've always been a family person. I would say don't forget our families. I believe in work-life balance. I have raised my children as a working mother, blessed with a wonderful husband. So don't lose sight of the most important thing in your life, which in my view should be families, our families. And then lastly, let's have a bit of fun. I'm looking forward. Invite me to your parties, to whatever gathering. I can bring my own lunch so we can meet and talk in a very informal setting. Asante sana.
Fantastic. Joyce, thank you so much. And again, a very warm welcome to Nairobi, to UN Environment.
Thank you very much. Thank you.